Okay, thank you so much. And I apologize again, everybody, for these unanticipated technical difficulties. I will go through these slides very quickly and get to the demonstration as quickly as possible. So you've all joined today to see a little bit about Sage X3 and why we're the choice for chemical ERP. You've heard all of us speaking, but I'll talk to, I'll tell you who the presenters are, who you're hearing speak. Mark, if you'll move to the presenter slide. The people that you're hearing frantically trying to fix our issues here are me, Samantha Marshall. I'm the Sage X3 Practice Director for Net at Work. We've got Mark Pinard and Deborah Watt on the line as well, who are solution engineers and product experts. Mark, if you go to the slide 3, we'll talk a little bit about some housekeeping for the webinar. We will run about 45 minutes long. We've got you muted, but please do pose any questions in the question box of your attendees panel. We will be sending these slides out after the presentation as a follow-up. We've got a couple of other follow-ups at the end of the session as well. Moving on to the next slide first, I'll talk a little bit about Net at Work, who's recently celebrating our 25th anniversary. The owners of Net at Work started the company from their home offices in 1996. We've grown from those 2 first employees to close to 300 team members today, mostly via organic business development, but also with some mergers and acquisitions as well over the years. Eddie and Alex are still owners. There's still a privately held company with Eddie and Alex at the helm, and they're still at the heart of everything we do at Net at Work. We support over 6,000 clients today with all of their business technology. And what I like about that is that it means we're always being challenged by our clients to find new and creative technology solutions to make sure they're getting the value out of their relationship with Net at Work and the technologies that we represent. So moving on to the next slide, here we talk a little bit about the host of services and consulting that we offer to help you in any phase of your digital transformation. Some of you will just be starting now on your path to transformation and assessing all of your options. Or perhaps you've got your priorities already set and you're building the execution plan of a particular strategy. Or maybe some of you are beginning the execution itself, and in any of these stages, Net at Work can provide some value for you. So again, while today ERP is the focus of the presentation, we know that you have many areas of technology that we'll need to consider as part of your transformation plan. And in particular, our chemical clients have lots of business units that aren't common with some of the other industries we serve. So requirements for R&D, for example, regulatory and laboratory, these are business units within our chemical clients that we don't see in all of our clients. And Net at Work has some specializations in this area, of course, and we can help them plan, and we can help you plan and execute strategies to bring transformation across any of these areas and across your whole company to ensure all of your specialized requirements are considered. Okay, so to that end, we'll move to the next slide and talk a little bit about the different technologies that Net at Work offers. So we did get our start in accounting and enterprise resource planning, which we call ERP, of course, on this slide. But as you can see, we provide a broad portfolio of solutions, including a number of leading ERP products and a host of other core business applications. We have experience with almost every technology related to ERP and Sage X3 in particular, including customer relationship management, e-commerce, which of course is so important today, and even human resources. And of course, we can take care of all the hosting, integrations, and any related managed services that go along with your ERP. Sage is our largest and most strategic partner. They're the publisher of X3. That's the ERP system, of course, we'll be talking about today. And before we go to the product specifically, I want to talk a little bit about what makes the NextGen ERP system, no matter which one you consider. Okay, so this next slide shows what we at Net at Work call a NextGen ERP. So it shows some points about what makes a NextGen ERP. If you're reading analyst papers from thought leaders like Gartner, you might also hear terms like fourth era ERP or digital operating platforms. DOP is becoming a very common term. All of these terms refer to the high-level benefits of these systems that you can see on this slide. Okay, so really, NextGen ERP extends your ERP application's functionality outside the enterprise into a wider ecosystem that can include customers, suppliers, other partners, even competitors, and external stakeholders. So we'll give everyone these slides after the presentation, as I mentioned at the beginning, so I won't read through all this, but you can see the focus here is on workflows, flexibility, scalability, and business intelligence. Okay, so it's about using industry tools that are becoming much more accessible to add automation and really access to the data you need to make fast, smart business decisions. Okay, so on the next slide, we talk a little bit about Sage X3 specifically. This is an ERP product designed for our clients working in product-centric environments. So those like you that potentially make, but definitely sell physical products. Okay, usually companies that use X3 are between 100 and 2,000 employees, or they have more complex operational needs like in the chemical industry. Because of its multi-language, multi-legislation, and multi-currency capabilities, X3 is used today by clients in over 80 countries. And you can see here over 7,000 clients use Sage X3 today. It delivers end-to-end business management for your chemical company and introduces better, flexible tools and functions to manage the entire business and on a global scale. Right, so you invest in technology today that will serve you for many years to come. A deployment of Sage X3 is also flexible. We have cloud offerings, either in private cloud or public cloud. And if you're not into cloud at all, Sage X3 can also be deployed either at your preferred host or on-premise. We do still have clients that prefer an on-premise solution, and Sage X3 can be deployed in any of those environments. So Sage X3 is designed to meet the needs of process manufacturers. So on this next slide, we see, commonly we hear that minimizing waste, reducing risk, and accelerating compliance are three very important themes of our chemical companies, whether you're blending to stock, providing complex custom formulations, or both. These are pretty common across the industry. You need to respond faster to changing customer demands, and of course, especially in the last couple of years, fluctuations in supply chain and procurement. You need to minimize waste, reduce the risk of cross-contamination, and minimize costs incurred due to spoilage. Reduce the risk and scope of recalls by ensuring your quality, traceability, and safety for all material and ingredients is maintained across all your processes. And finally, you want systems that will adapt quickly to meet changing regulations and compliance requirements. Okay, so those are some of the common themes that we see, and I'll end here. Enough of me. We'll get to Mark and the demo of Sage X3. Thank you, and apologies again for the technical slow start.
Thanks, Sam. That was great. Even though we had a little technical difficulty, we recovered from that and we moved on. The only other technical difficulty I saw was there in that one slide. I was the ghost in the middle. I guess I'm the invisible man. My picture was not there, but that's okay. We can we could forward that out at another time if anybody needs to have a look at me. All right. So let's go ahead and look at Sage ERP X3. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Mark Pinard. I'm the sales engineer here at Net at Work for X3, and I've been working with X3 for over 18 years. And what I'd like to start with just within X3 is just to show you some of those features in the tool that allow you to become the NextGen ERP. And that really just comes from logging in and being presented with so much information and have so many tools at your disposal. So I'm going to start there, and then we're going to get into those items specifically that help us operate in the chemical industry. I'm going to start just by pointing out first off that we are a web-based application. X3 runs over the web through any browser of your choice. Safari, Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Edge, you name it. As long as it's HTML5 compatible, you could use that as your browser. I am logged in today using Chrome. And one of the really nice features that using a browser brings to you is that you can have multiple tabs open all within X3 at the same time. And you can have as many tabs open as you want, allowing you to have multiple screens available just with a single click. And that is all using just one single user license of X3. It's not a license per tab that you open up. Of course, the other benefit there is you're going to be able to access X3 from anywhere, from home, as most of us working remotely still today, and from anywhere and at any time you need to access the application. As users log in, each one's going to be presented with their own unique experience. They're going to be consuming information from X3 that is pertinent to them, and it will be based upon their permission, their security, and what you give your users rights to. But typically what we see when they log in, they're going to have access to some landing pages. I've got on the left of my screen several landing pages that I predefined for demonstration purposes. I've got one for sales, service, and pricing, purchasing, production, inventory, and quality, just to name a few. Each of these landing pages will have multiple tabs across them as well. So you can see I've got a tab for my customer service and sales, one for statistics. What we're doing here is I'm just going to walk through and just show a representation of some of these and what some of these tools allow us to do. And very important, right on the first tab, I have my navigation panel and some other information that is in a calendar and in a list called notifications down below. This navigation panel that we're using here is called a visual process map. This allows you as users to put your processes into a visual flow and navigate from point to point. So in this case, if I could start by entering a quote, entering an order, shipping an order, and just moving from task to task. These icons that are in the visual process map are much like icons you would see on your smartphone, where you push the icon, it's going to open up a screen in X3 based on your permission and your security. In this case, we're in the order entry screen. You may be able to add orders or just view an order. Just again, depends upon your security and what's been granted to you. What we find from talking to our customers is that using the visual process maps during the implementation and ongoing with X3 just reduces the time to implement, which in the end saves time and money. You're going to be able to take advantage of X3's features much quicker and just spend less time in the training and the piloting room getting ready to go live. These process maps are user definable. We have a few hundred of them that come in the box, but they're meant to be tailored for you by you during the implementation to match your business process. So whichever way you need to organize them, you can do that, and it's a very easy tool to use. It's all drag and drop, point and click. Also on this tab, I have a calendaring function. The X3 application does come standard with a CRM, that customer relationship management software. So if you're used to using something like Salesforce.com or Microsoft Dynamics CRM, we have a built-in tool that has all that functionality included. And this is just looking at different tasks and different calendar events that are waiting for me to respond to them. So they could be appointments or phone calls that are waiting to be followed up. And all I've done is displayed them in another widget on my dashboard. So everybody in your organization who is going to have items popping up on their calendar, they'll be able to view them in a real-time fashion. And just down below that, I'm just going to scroll down a bit. We have some notifications. X3 has a built-in workflow engine, and I'm going to demonstrate that in just a couple of minutes. What that workflow engine can do is very important. Again, this is one of those next-gen features. But any event that goes on within any of the data in X3 is going to trigger a notification to your users, either through email or through a dashboard view like this one. and then they'd be able to click in on the hyperlink to drill in and view what the details of that notification are. In this case, an order went in that was for an exceptionally large amount, and I wanted to be notified on that. So anywhere within X3's data, if you need a notification to come to you based on that event, maybe inventory went below a safety stock, or maybe a purchase order didn't receive when it was supposed to, or maybe an order went in that was below a margin, or a customer went on hold. If you can dream up the situation that you need notification on, then we can create a rule in our workflow engine that notifies you of that event when it happens. On my next tab, I have some issues and exceptions. So these are those things that typically fall off the tracks in your ERP and your daily processing, for those things like customers who are on hold, orders that are late. Again, you know, it's your imagination is the limit. If you could think it, then we can create a query, put it on a dashboard. And for me personally, I used to work as an office supply manager in a warehouse. And I would spend much of my morning figuring out what did I need to deal with today that didn't happen yesterday. And with a dashboard tool like this, I could have saved myself a couple hours a day and probably a pot of coffee. But all of these fields that are underscored are hyperlinks, so it allows you to very quickly drill in and look at the details of those records to determine what the issue is, and then maybe to call the customer or call a supplier or do whatever needs to be done in order to remedy this situation. There again, I want to point out that within X3, we have 250 of these that are predefined, these queries, but a lot of times our customers will come up with new ones or unique ones, and we'll create those in X3, or you'll create those in X3, and then we could drag those over and drop them on any user's dashboard that needs them. And to do that, I just want to demonstrate as well as if the user hits the plus button up above, it will bring up a palette of different types of information they could bring over and put on their dashboard. In this case, we're looking at queries, and they could drop in and look at any of these queries they would need to, and they can highlight the one they want to bring over and say okay, and it will add it to the dashboard very, very quickly. And of course, the one I picked didn't seem to have some information in it, but you can add those, and then when you're finished, you could pick these guys up and just move them around on your dashboard, dropping them anywhere you would want them to go. And the important thing there, what's really important to you is you don't need these people coming to your IT department anymore to create or manage your dashboards. They're really going to be able to self-service and do that on their own. One of the other areas that we put up here is a true dashboard of business statistics. These are critical business indicators that you need to see on a regular basis in order to get an idea of what's going on within the organization. We use a business intelligence tool to derive this information. It is a data warehouse that can refresh near real time by the minute if we needed to, but it's consolidating, summarizing, and grouping this information into some different widgets for you to view. This particular dashboard is based on what a sales manager might require. So things like sales trends, top 5 items, top 5 customers, margin analysis down here in the lower right, or customer calls and complaints that are happening over time. So the idea is the sales manager can view this dashboard. It's real-time information. They could either refresh it or it will refresh periodically on its own. But if you're working in a multi-tiered organization where you've got multiple entities that report up into consolidated financials, if you wanted to, you could look at all of them, or you could look at one single entity like my North American entity. And as you drill through different hierarchies of corporate structure or of customer types or of product categories, then you can get in and review the information down to a level of detail that you would need. Maybe it's at the product level or the customer level, but you could go through groups of customers or groups of products first in order to analyze that. And ultimately at the very end, you could certainly click on any one of these graphs and it will drill down and show you additional details or level of information that you want to see. These dashboards, again, like this is going to be a common theme of today, is everything is configurable, tailorable, and extendable to match what you need it to be. So if some of these widgets aren't important to you, we could take them out and pop in ones that do mean something to you. And we have about a dozen of these dashboards that are already predefined that come in the box with X3. So again, you can use those out of the box as is, or we could tailor them as we would need. Next up, I want to, now that I've finished with some of the dashboard views and navigation, I want to go down into a purchasing landing page and just show the capability of that workflow engine. This is truly the tool that you could use to dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure that everything is complete and informative and done before the process moves on. What I've done is I've created a purchase order earlier today. That purchase order requires a signature before it can be moved over to the customer or to the supplier. And what I've got is a signature management panel that my workflow populates for me automatically. And here I'm looking at that purchase order and it's waiting for me to be signed. The rules of this purchase order are user definable as well. I think I have a $500 threshold that says if it's under 500, I don't need approval. If it goes over that, then it routes to another individual for a signature. And we could see that's waiting here to be signed already. What I can do as the user is I could see these in a dashboard view, or these could come to me in an email. I do have the ability to go back to the purchase order and review it. Obviously, I need access to the purchase order because I want to know what are we buying, who are we buying it from, when is it getting delivered, and what are we paying for it. Once I've looked at those and reviewed those and I'm ready to approve it, I can bring up my signature screen. Here I've been provided with two choices. I can either reject it or approve it. And when I approve that purchase order, I approve it, it moves it off my workbench and I'm done. So think to yourself of anywhere in your organization that you need a gateway, you need an approval. We can build that approval in. We have standard approvals built in at quotes and orders from the sales side, requisitions and purchase orders from the purchase side. But again, we can take that workflow tool and we could add those approval steps in anywhere you would need them. Maybe if somebody changes a formulation, we want to go through an approval process. Maybe somebody adds a new ingredient or a new raw material into the item master, we want to approve that. Or maybe a customer wants a credit limit increase, we could route that for approval too. So again, you name it, we can certainly build that in. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about navigation and what we're looking at the dashboard and all of those things that are really next gen oriented, let's move in and talk about some things that are chemical related specifically. To do that and to start out with, I'm going to go to my second tab that I have open in the item master, and I want to point out a few things that are just always very important. And X3 fits very well in what we call the process industry. Process being different subgroups like chemical, food and bev, pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, things like that. So here I've got a chemical database that I've set up, and we're going to be working with paint today. We've got a bulk paint that we produce and then package it into 5-gallon drums. We'll put it in 1-gallon cans. We'll put it in maybe quart cans. We could put it in a number of different finished goods. But what I want to point out first before we just move along is all of the screens in X3 have been designed in a similar fashion. Over on the left, this is a listing of all of my ingredients, raw materials, any intermediates and finished goods that we have within the item master themselves. You can click on them one by one, but this left list, if I open it up, is also meant to be a filter and a query tool. So if I wanted to look at everything that was a paint related item, and if I could spell correctly, I could type in the word paint, hit the enter key. X3 will go out and locate everything with paint. I click on the one item I want. It brings it back into my display area in the center of the screen and allows me then, again, based on permission, to either update the record, add new records, whatever I would want to do. Over on the right is what we call a connected workspace. I'll just draw your attention over here very quickly. Here we have the opportunity to drill into different areas of X3 with a single click, areas that relate back to this particular item that I'm looking at. So if I wanted to look at any orders, I could do a single click, look at those orders. If it were a raw material or an ingredient that I'm buying, I could look at all the receipts or all the purchase orders very, very quickly and just navigate to that screen with a single click. Okay, So let me talk about some other things that are really important. The first off is we have a product status. That status is going to be dictated based on where it is within its life cycle. It could be in development temporarily as we're creating that formulation and developing it and finalizing it. Once it becomes active, it's going to go through its life, and ultimately that item may become obsolete or not usable, which means it's at end of life. And there are rules behind these different statuses that will apply within X3. We also have, that's very important, some statistical groups. These are what the business intelligence tool was looking at for you in order to group or categorize or summarize those items together into different classifications. So these are all going to be user defined. I'm showing 3, and you could have more statistical groups displayed out to the right as well. But the content of these is all user definable, so you will populate those as to what those different group classifications are for you. On the management tab, this is where things get really important. First off is, do we need to manage the lot of these items as they come in from suppliers or as we produce them and get them ready to ship out to customers? And the answer to this item is yes, we have a mandatory lot ID that we need to establish. So as items come in from suppliers, we will log the supplier lot number, but we also have the ability to create our own internal lot number that matches up with that. And we will track these lot numbers from start to finish, cradle to grave, so that you could quickly do recalls or just do analysis on, hey, where did this particular lot get consumed and used and shipped out to different customers? That is both forward and backward, and I'll show you an example of that when we get into the quality area. A little further down, if I scroll down with my wheel, I've also got some expiration management that we can utilize here within X3. So if anything that you've got is date sensitive and needs to be consumed or utilized or sold before it expires, then we can help you manage that within the application. So as items get received in the back door, we'll stamp them with a use by or best use by date, an expiration date, how many days of lead time, and also a lead time we can establish by customer within X3. So if it's an item that you're selling to a customer and your customer has rules about how much lead time can be left on, or how much shelf life expiration time can be left on an item that they're buying from you, we could set that up at the customer level, and then our allocation rules will look at that to apply proper product to that customer. On the unit and measure tab, this is very important as well. We've got multiple units of measure, in fact, an unlimited number of units of measure in X3. Here, this item's being stocked by the kilogram, and I just want to point out there is a density value that goes with that. So if you need to convert liquid units of measure into solid units of measure, X3 will support you in that endeavor. So we have a density value and we know how to convert those items. So you can be stocking chemicals, raw materials by the gallon or by other liquid units of measure, and we can convert those into weight units of measure that you might use on your formulation. There are some other very important things here I just wanted to point out, and that is, I'm going to go down into the properties area. Here we're tied in with our CAS numbers, and those CAS numbers, of course, you could be manually entering those, or if you'd like to, you could also set up a subscription to the Lolly database, and X3 could reach into the Lolly database and import these numbers for you automatically. So you are going to link all of those chemicals with their proper CAS numbers, and then as you go through and generate your formulation, you're going to get a list of all of those that are included within that formula. And of course, with those and different chemicals, we're also going to denote some of their exposures. So if we went to the global harmonization records, you'll see that we're going to store here all of the placarding that's required for any kind of transportation, and also we'll store what the health hazards are with these items and what need to be done in case of spillage or somebody would inhale them or get them on their skin. And from that, within X3, I'll show you this when we get into our formulation tool, we'll also have the ability to create SDS, so you could be the author of your own safety data sheets, or if you don't need them, we could certainly just plug in a standard safety data sheet with each and every chemical so that you could view those or print those or publish those to your customers, either on a schedule or on demand. So we have the ability to use a standard one, or you could create your own if needed. One other thing that I bypassed, which is very important. So for these items that we purchase from different suppliers, on my supplier tab, and I need to work with the Enbright stock, that was, maybe it was the iTech, one of these. Okay, there was one of these items I wanted to make sure that it was set up, that we had some quality control and inspection required when it got received. So what I'm gonna do is just flip this one over to show you how that works. Here, there's a flag in the item master that says, hey, when I buy this item from my Easton Chemical supplier, it automatically is going to be established with a Q status for quarantine. It's going to go into a quality control area for inspection. The inspection people are going to be provided with what we call a technical sheet. That technical sheet is going to be a list of questions that the quality people need to respond to and fill in the results for before they could approve that product and move it on for general consumption. So here at the item, not just at the item level, but at the item supplier level, we can mark these items as being in QC control or not. Some of your suppliers may provide you with a C of A, which just allows them to be certified. So you could receive those items then without going through the quality control inspection if that's something that you practice. The last capability I want to point out here before we move along, I'm going to go back into my paint item, and I just want to bring up, over on the far right is a list of these standard icons that you would see with other web-based applications, plus to add a new record, the trash can to delete a record, the print to bring up a print menu. But I wanted to bring up the paperclip. X3 has the ability to store or link any documents with any record within the application. They could be pictures, they could be PDFs, they could be Word documents, they could be Excel spreadsheets, they could be video files, they could be anything that's electronic that you need them to be. In this case, it was a flammable combustible storage document, and any user will have the ability then to open up the item master, to click on that link, and they can go in and read all the rules about how to store items, combustible type items or flammable type items in a special storage room, and it'll give them all the details. So any documents that you're storing yourself, you'll be able to link those into your items or into your formulas or anywhere else within X3. And those individuals with the proper permission will be able to come in and view those on demand. I'm going to navigate back over to my visual process map, and I'm going to go down to my production area. And I just want to start with kind of the beginning of the process. X3 offers the opportunity to create to create estimated formulations. So we have a formulation tool that is built into the application that you could utilize to do several things. One is, as you generate this formula for the first time, you could put a revision code on it. So you could mark multiple revisions of this as you're going through either the prototyping step or the initial implementation of it. It goes through certain approvals to make it available within certain steps. It could be not approved, approved for pilot, or approved for production. And if I drop down to the ingredient list, we could see a list of all of those ingredients that are utilized to formulate this particular item. So we need some water, we need a preservative, we need a base, and we're looking at paint here. So you'll have the ability in a what if mode in a sandbox to prepare what this formulation is going to look like. And adding records is very easy. You simply click into the area, and you could either be pulling in items that are already existing within the item master, or they could be items that are not in the item master at this point yet. They could be new items that you need to procure and bring in order to finish this particular formulation. Some of the results of that formulation as you're going through and manipulating it can be, we can calculate things like what are the total pounds, total kilograms, what are the total percentage of solids within that formula. All of those are measurements and calculations that we can take. And just below that on the specification tab, these are some of those tests or some of the test results and the ranges of those tests that we want to take. So, you know, what is a valid percent solids? What's a valid pH? Those kinds of measurements that we may want to look at. And then further on, we could look also at any of those hazards that we were looking at before that are coming over from the item master. We're going to be grouping those together here within the hazard rating factors, and then within those different calculations and our categories, I'm meant to say. All right, so all of that information can be brought over and used here within the formulation. So in your formulation, if you needed to formulate to a certain percentage of solids, we'll measure that and help you with that calculation. Here you also have the opportunity over on the far right is to generate that SDS or just to view that safety data sheet. And just one other thing I want to point out here from the R&D formula creation is you could also generate a quote right from this screen and view those quotes. So if you needed to create something specific to a customer, there is a customer field that's available here on the quote. This quote or this formula can be created specifically for a customer, and then a quote generated from the output of that. And the last steps we would need to do is once that R&D formulation is approved for production, what we want to do is two more steps. We want to publish that formula out to the core of X3 production, so get it ready for production. And any of those ingredients that were not in the product master already, we would want to publish those into the product master of X3. So we need to kind of go out and make our bed before we sleep in it. So we want to make sure that those items are out there and ready for use. So we do a publish step to get those done. Okay. You also have the ability here within the formulation to also add in any other electronic documents. So if you wanted to bring in any kind of pictures or any other documents, you can add those as well. I want to make sure that I just point out that those are global features of X3. Really, anything we're looking at here already are global features of X3 are available enterprise-wide. Just going to put this screen away, and I'm going to navigate down now to my quality control area. There's a couple features that I just want to talk about that are always important for chemical manufacturers, and that's quality. So the key area of the quality control is our quality control workbench. As items get received into inventory, either through receiving or through production or from a customer return, or if there's steps within production in the process that require quality control to intervene and respond, they're going to be presented with that information here in the quality control workbench. So here is my blend of my paint that has been received into inventory temporarily before we package it out into different containers. I've got 200 kilograms of this that have been received in, and I can see that I've got a technical sheet that I need to fill in before I can approve that and move it on. And let me back that up. I selected the wrong item. I would want to bring up, well, I thought I did. Wait a minute. What am I doing? I thought maybe I was on the wrong route. Something is keeping me from bringing up that technical sheet at this point to fill in. So I know what I needed to do. I think I just need to hit the new button, and then it will bring up the proper technical sheet for me. And I can apply those answers that the quality people have measured. So I would fill in all the proper fields, record that information, and really the important feature here is that once all of that information has been stored within X3 into these data elements, then I can use my business intelligence tool to run analytics against that particular test to find out how are we trending with that supplier. Is it staying within tolerance, or are we starting to experience out of tolerance values? Or in the production of my finished chemicals with my formulas, how are we doing with those? Are we staying within tolerance, or are we starting to move outside of those values? So the business intelligence tool becomes really important in the day-to-day analytics of what we're doing within our production and our receiving functions. So one of the things that we could do is within the lot traceability here in X3, I wanted to point this out. Here you have the ability to look at those different lot numbers. So I'm going to pull one up just for an item that I know has lots of information for me. It happens to be pinto beans, but you could think of this as any other raw material or ingredient that you may use. I'm just going to look at its historical usage by lot number. So we received the beans in with a lot number 8. We consumed those beans when we made some dip, when they went into lot number 9, and then ultimately they were consumed in the packaging of these 24-ounce containers and 12-ounce containers, and those containers were given these different lot numbers that are here in the center of the screen. And ultimately I've identified over here on the right what customers those beans got shipped to. So a full cradle to grave lot traceability is built into our quality control module. And you can also turn the results of this around backwards. And maybe you want to look at what, if we were given a finished good item, what are the lot numbers of all of the ingredients or all of the raw materials that went into it. So here I've turned it upside down, and now I'm looking at all of the materials, each one of them independently that went in. So I could go back to a storage area where I maybe had some samples that I'd taken and stored somewhere, and I could retest those and relook at those, but just to demonstrate the capability here of being able to go forward and backward with any lot traceability. The last thing I want to point out here within the quality area is this is built-in functionality and is core to X3. It is not a third party or an add-on or anything that we're using. This is just part of the application that comes embedded. Included with it as well is a non-conformance recording capability. It's part of the quality. So if any, and a corrective action that goes with that. And this is a very formal process that you could outline and utilize. So here you've got different statuses of these non-conformances that have occurred. They can generate automatically from a receipt of a product. If quality people determine that something was wrong, they could automatically create a non-conformance, or a customer RMA could create a non-conformance, as this one did. This one came back from Walgreens. So that non-conformance will then go through an action plan that you're going to specify what that plan is. And these are tasks that will be generated that will show up on people's calendars on their dashboards, as we saw in the very beginning of the presentation. And those items could be marked as being corrective or preventative, depending on what you felt needed to be done to correct this particular non-conformance. These tasks, there can be many of these on each non-conformance. They're assigned to individuals, and they're going to record when they're completed, so we know when all the steps of that non-conformance are done. And ultimately at the end, the last status of a non-conformance will not be in planning, but completed and finalized. This again is just, it's a piece of our quality module that comes core to X3 that you could utilize just to go through a very, very documented process to record what the problem was, what the root problem was, and what the solution was. Okay, so moving along, I want to also bring up within the inventory and warehousing area, the ability in X3 to help you store any flammable or any explosive items within certain locations. Maybe you've got a room that's set up within your facility to track things that are flammable, explosive. I know that they need to be separated from the rest of your inventory. They cannot be stacked if they're larger than a certain quantity. You can only have a certain number of items within these different locations. But what I did here and what I want to demonstrate in X3 is for the ability to set up a location type that's called flammable. And this is for my flammable, this is my flammable combustion room. And what I did was I set it up with a certain number of stock locations that we could view at any time. And I could see what those location ID numbers are. And if they were occupied by a product, what those products would be. So again, there are a lot of rules about storing different materials and how they get stored and the quantity of those. And here over on the right side of the screen, if they needed to be set up with a certain quantity of weight or a certain quantity of cube, then we could put a capacity constraint on those different locations so that we could never get too much into one location. And ERP X3 is smart enough to know that when I've hit that capacity, I can no longer store items there, that I may need to store them in an external storage location or an overflow location that maybe is outside, and it will dictate where those items need to be stored. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time within the warehousing, but I know the location management is always important, but I do want to talk about a couple of production topics before we open it up for general questions. And one of those I know is when we go through and set up that formula and we move it over within X3, we also create what's called a routing. And a routing is that list and step-by-step instruction that we need to follow in order for production to do its job. So if I go look at something like an axle grease, here I'm doing a fill and a pack process. I could probably pick a better one, maybe an intermediate that I wanted to look at. It might have more steps on it. But one of the things that I want to point out that I've seen our customers do quite a bit is they may have some clean out requirements or some quality requirements at each one of these different steps. So if I were to put this into a more detailed view, so I could see everything without scrolling over to the right, the one thing that I wanted to point out here is that each one of the steps within the routing, not only do we designate things like setup time and run time and the quantity that we're producing, but if I just scroll down a little bit, I can also add in one of those technical sheets at each step. And what this would require then is that in this, between step 20 and step 30 in my process, I need to also run some tests and record some results. And that again is just some extended capabilities of our quality module that reaches into the production area. The other thing that I wanted to point out is here, a lot of times I'll see that we'll add in a third routing step that may include a cleanup or a clean out process. And here is where we could designate that. And we could also set up what the runtime is for that. How many hours do we require? And in X3, as we're recording production of completed quantities, I could also scrap part of that quantity at that step if there were some clean out product that was wasted in that operation. So maybe you've got a pump line that's got 14 feet, that's 1/2 inch pipe, and you're going to clean that out and it's going to get wasted. We could record that scrap at that operation level so we know how much we lost from that clean out process. Or we could record what we lost from any other step in the process as well. And where I want to go with that is that in my production insights back into that business intelligence, I can be recording what I've scrapped, what I've rejected, what my yields are, and I could see that information graphically as a bar chart and a line chart, or I could see those values numerically. And I can also drill into different levels of detail. So rather than just looking at a monthly total, I could look at it daily, or I could look at it weekly. Or if you so chose to, we could repivot this table and we could look at it by product, or we could look at it by operation. So we could see different metrics just based on what those values are that you would like to see. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about production and some of the quality measures that we can invoke within X3. And now what I want to do is really I want to open it up. I know we've got about just 5 minutes left in our demonstration, our webinar time. So I just want to take the last 5 minutes and ask some of my coworkers if there are any questions in the chat room. I would be happy to answer them at this point. So Dev or Sam, anything out there that you can help me with?
Hey, Mark, I just checked in with Dev and he said that there weren't any questions. You did such a thorough job. We don't have any questions right now, I don't think. So okay. While we give people a quick opportunity to type some in at the last minute here, I will mention to the group that we're going to be sending out the slides. We're going to include in those slides some of the information that Mark covered today as well. So you'll have extra slides in the deck that we send. We're also going to send a link to a really good white paper that we've put together around a master plan for chemical digital transformation that really provides almost like a checklist of the steps you want to follow when you're considering your options in this space. So we'll send you that white paper. We also want to offer up a meeting with one of our team members, Gigi. Gigi is a master in this space in digital transformation for chemical companies, and she would love to meet with all of you to discuss your goals and your dreams in this journey, and she can provide a lot of guidance and advice to you if you're interested in speaking with her. So we'll include those two things in the follow-up communications.
Oh, that's a great offering. Thanks, Sam.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, without any questions then, I'm going to say thank you everyone for attending our webinar today on chemical processing using X3.
Hey, Mark. Sorry, can you hear me? There is a question. I'm just going to post it right here for you. I'm going to read it out aloud.
Okay.
Is there availability to export QC data for analysis in statistical software?
Oh, great question. And the answer to that is yes. We can export in any format that you need to. Excel is the most common, but absolutely. So we could put it out into an Excel file or a flat file, and then you're free to utilize that data in any other measurement system you want to use. Great question. Anything else that's popped up, Dev, in the chat or in the question panel?
No, this one just did, so we got to it.
Okay, great. Well then, just again, thank you everybody for attending, for taking time out of your day. And I'm gonna.
Thanks everyone.
All right.
Thank you, Mark. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.